Cheers and welcome, my friends. I'm Horath, and these are 10 more things that you should know before you start a Stellaris 2.0 game. After finishing the first video, I found that I hadn't even gone through half of what I had noted down during my playthroughs, so I thought, let's make it just a second video and get those things out there as well. If you found the video helpful in any form or fashion, then please do leave a like so that I can show up in search results. Leave your own strategies and stuff in the comment section, and if you have any questions, then do leave them in the comment section as well. I'll do my best to help you. And now let's get on to the video. So if you're playing Stellaris 2.0, you'll notice that you have all three basic weapon types available from the start. You have the lasers, you have the missiles, and you have the mass drivers. And what that allows you to do is go for counter builds, like basically from the beginning of the game. If you see that your enemy is stacking lots and lots of armor, go with the lasers to get that sweet plus 50% armor damage. If they're stacking shields, go for the missiles, or go for the mass drivers to do more damage to the shields. The other thing that has been changed, and that is real nice, is that corvettes can now actually have point defense on them. So if you go for the picket ship, that unlocks as soon as you have researched any point defense weapon. You do not start with those, but you can get them as a pretty early research. I got the flak battery here, so I'm going to throw that on and like put two other weapons on it. And then do remember to actually change the combat computer from the basic corvette behavior to the picket behavior if you do have it, so that it actually works properly with the point defense. But yeah, I think that's a pretty nice addition, and yeah, remember to make use of it. So if you own the Leviathans DLC, you also have access to the Curators, which are scientist enclave people, or independent traders, or independent artists. And the systems where these guys live have become a lot more important and a lot more useful with the 2.0 patch, because you can now build special starbase modules in the systems where these guys are. This is a science curator system, and these guys allow you to build a curator think tank. After asking them for permission, you have to have like a decent relation with them, and then if you ask them, they say yes, and that gives you that the curator think tank, 5 in every research area for just two energy credits, which is very nice. The other thing that you can do with these guys, if you have traders in your space, then they allow you to build trading hubs in that system. Otherwise, you can only do that in systems where you have a colony of some form or fashion, be that a ring world or a habitat or a planet. But yeah, in systems with these guys, you can do that as well. So speaking of trading hubs, these guys can net some serious money, which is why I actually recommend that you use systems where you have colonies exclusively for trading hub stations. Have a look at this. This is my home system with my tall empire, another run. And each of these trading hubs brings in 8.75 energy credits. That comes down to a total of 52.5. If you take away the upkeep for that station, that 2.70, that's 50 energy credits net. That's half of my whole surplus at this point. Just put that off-world trading company on that station and make sure to unlock the Transstellar corporations, which can be done very early. So definitely recommend going for that decently soon. It doesn't have to be the first pick, but if you have a lot of colonies and a lot of these stations, that can definitely pay for a lot of things. And then just put your shipyards where you build your ships in systems where you have no colonies to make the most use. Specialize them, have maybe a whole shipyard station. The same is kind of true for anchorages. Just put those in systems where you have no colonies to get the most out of them. Put those anchorages to increase the naval cap, and also slap a naval logistics office on it. So what's like the best way to turtle in Stellaris 2.0? There is a combination of tech, traditions, and an ascension perk that you want to take, and that is going to give you massively strong stations. So what you're going to do is you definitely need expansion to get more starbase capacity. Expansion traditions. Supremacy is going to help you and giving you additional starbase capacity and reducing the upgrade cost, which can go into the thousands of minerals that you save through that, definitely. And then prosperity traditions are just going to reduce the upkeep for the starbases, which is actually rather important if you have a lot of them. And then you're gonna pick the Eternal Vigilance, which you can pick as your third one without any prerequisites, which is gonna boost star-based damage and platform damage, and just allows you flat out to put 5 additional defense platforms on everything, and that includes everything, like even non-upgraded star bases, like that one, which is just an outpost. You can still put 8 defense platforms on these, which I did over here in the new ranker system. No, I did not apparently. I did. I definitely did. Yeah, over here. I did it over here. Right, so the Doralian Station is just an unupgraded outpost. It has nothing on it, but it still has 3k military power, which is actually considerable if you like say look at these guys, which they have 50,000 in here in that system, and then they have another 13 in here, so they have about 63,000 in here. That means we have 5% of their military power in a system with a non-upgraded spaceport. Each of my defense stations is like half their fleet almost, which is pretty insane because these guys don't cost me any naval cap. So yeah, that's actually very defensive with that. And then what you want to take as well, other than the Eternal Vigilance, is a rear tech. You want the synchronized defenses, which allows you to research the defense grid supercomputer, and that increases the amount of defensive platforms that you can put on your stations by 8. So even more than that Ascension perk, which actually, yeah, makes it pretty insane. You can have stations, if they're fully upgraded to Citadel level, that allow you to have 28 defensive platforms. That is a lot, especially if you like build these out, make them better via tech and all. These guys can be pretty good and pretty defensible. So remember, traditions, tech, and the Ascension perk. One of the lessons I'm definitely taking from my experience with Stellaris 2.0 so far is that building up your fleet from the very beginning to as high as you can is something that you have to do if you want to expand. Like, my expansion over here, for example, is blocked by these Space Amoeba Hunters, so I really got to build my fleet up to a decent amount, to at least their strength, to be able to evict them from that system and claim it for myself. So not having a fleet at hand, I mean, it's going to cost me time to build up that fleet. It's probably going to be okay, but if my neighbor does it, then they can expand into that system and I'm going to lose that system. And depending on what's in there, I might not want to do that. So to serve the system and to claim the system, you have to clear it. So it's actually a lot more important to have a fleet at hand for that than it used to be, because you just used to get all the surrounding systems of a planet or an outpost just free of charge. That's no longer the case, so do not neglect your fleet. So one thing that you have to do, and that you should only not do at your own peril, is claim systems with wormholes in them. That wormholes are basically distributed over the whole galaxy in pairs, so one wormhole only ever has another wormhole that it leads to. And this was my first playthrough, and I didn't claim that wormhole system over here in time. And look what happened. These guys, the Zach plot hegemony, who originally used to live down here, have actually expanded over here through their stupid wormhole that they've taken. They've heavily fortified it, and now they basically have a second expansion opportunity in the north. They're taking all my space. So I really recommend that you do take the wormholes, fortify them, and hold on to them, because otherwise you're going to have bad times. I mean, it's not as bad in here, because these guys don't hate me. They're actually kind of friendly. But it could have been an enemy as well, even a determined exterminator or fanatical purifier. And then you got these guys right at your gates. With the system to build up. Like, if you control that station, yes, they can still get through that wormhole, but at least you have a way to stop them right away. These guys could build up in all those systems and then invade my space if they were hostile. So yeah, claim those wormhole systems. You gotta. So one rather significant change that has come to the game in Stellaris 2.0 is the change to the increase in tech and tradition cost. Pops no longer play any role in that. You can have as many pops as you want, but the amount of planets above your home planet and the amount of systems over your home system play a huge role. Now, let's have a look at the technology. I have 2 planets. I have my home planet, which doesn't really increase cost at all, and then I have 1 colony. And that boosts my cost by 5% for that additional planet, and 24% for those 12 systems I have above my home planet, above my home system. Now, for the tradition cost, that actually changes dramatically. System cost is the same, 24% for 12 systems. I'm not sure why it's like counting them differently, why it doesn't say 13 systems over here, because it just counts the systems above your home system. All right, and then you can see that that 1 colony that I have actually costs me a whopping 20% additional tradition cost. So that is huge. That is an enormous amount of tradition. You can reduce that penalty a little bit by going for the courier network, reducing that to a 16% thing. But even so, it's like more than 3 times as heavy as the tech increase. So if you're playing a very tradition-heavy empire, you can get away with having lots and lots of systems, but you've got to be really careful if you go for colonies. They got to be really worth it. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So with the changes that 2.0 introduces to how we move through the galaxy, which is mainly via hyperlane, there have also been changes to galactic terrain. We actually got some now. 4 different types of systems actually have special traits. The first one is the black hole, which reduces the disengagement chance for ships that are engaged here and increases the emergency FTL jump cooldown. So if you want to try to retreat, it's going to take you 50% longer, and ships that reach a certain low threshold of hull points will be destroyed rather than being able to disengage from the fight. That makes attacks on black hole defense stations sort of all or nothing affairs. You got to win them because you're not going to get out of that fight very easily. Makes for very good defensive systems. Then we have the pulsars, which completely nullify shields. Also very interesting for like going for specialized defensive station builds. Sadly, the normal defensive stations you cannot customize, but you can customize the defensive platforms. You can specifically design those then to only use armor on there, and any fleet that isn't also built out to only utilize armor is going to be at a disadvantage if they attack a defensive station in a pulsar system. Then as the third type, we have galactic nebulas. These, you can see those or find out where nebulas are because they are named from the beginning, like over here, the Cherryh dust clouds. That is there from the very beginning of the start, so it's rather easy to see where they are. And you cannot see inside these systems. They are completely invisible for the sensors, or rather what's in it. You do see that there's a system, but you cannot see inside. That makes them prime real estate for shipyards, I think, especially in multiplayer games. You can also like build a nifty building in here that allows you to filter some of the minerals out of the clouds that are in the nebula, but that is of minor importance. And then we have, last but not least, the neutron star, which reduces sublight speed of all ships in the system, which is again a massive buff to any defensive station that is in the system. If you can get these in a system that can close down a whole area, like let's say for example this black hole system over here, definitely something where you want to build a defensive station that can defend that whole arm. And so yeah, it's actually a lot more important to identify these special terrain systems and to use them to your advantage to set up defensive positions. One small change that is easy to overlook is that the orbit modifier has changed. So fleet is an orbit modifier. You can see if your fleet has that by that symbol. If they got that green symbol, then the fleet is in orbit, and you do pay reduced upkeep for their fleet because I guess the crew has shore leave and is asking for less money. That used to be applied to the fleet if they were in orbit of a planet. That is no longer the case. I got that fleet in the orbit of Asmic Prime and nothing happens. You gotta send these guys to the station in the system and tell them to enter the orbit of the station. If I move these guys out of orbit, you can see that my upkeep has actually increased to 53. If I send them back into the orbit, that goes down again. So mind that. With the introduction of patch 2.0, the days of corvette exploration are completely gone. Neither military ships nor construction ships will even go into a system that has not at least been visited by a science ship with a scientist on it. What I do recommend is that you send your science ships with the explore commands, in certain systems, and just maybe check out a spiral arm like over here. I can just see if it's worth it expanding down here early game, or if I'm going to leave that for later. Instead of serving each of the systems, you're going to be much faster and you can make more informed decisions. And I do recommend at least 2, maybe even 3 science ships, because you can have 1 ship doing the whole exploring business, and then 2 science ships exploring different arms and going for the survey work. And I tend to have at least 2 constructors, 1 per surveying science ship, to sort of work in tandem, build the stations that claim those systems, and then the mining stations and all that kind of stuff. Just so you don't fall behind in the early game expansion, you kind of need to grab a decent amount of systems early on. Now, it might seem kind of harsh that you can't send military ships into systems to check if there are evil space creatures in there first. But in my experience, the scientists no longer die even if their ship gets destroyed by the space creatures. They just pop up in the leader pool again, and you can just build another science ship, man a science ship with that scientist again, and send them out back into space. So it's actually not that bad of a change. I kind of like it. Hooray! You made it to the end of the video. If you found the video helpful in any form or fashion, then please do leave a like so that it can show up in search results and help even more people. If you have any questions, then do leave them in the comment section so I can answer them. I'll do my best to do that. And if you want to see more of me stuffs, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Lots more Stellaris content, both Let's Play and tips and tutorial content is coming up in the future months. So if you want to have more of that, then do consider hitting the subscribe button. And I hope I see you in one of my other videos. Thanks. Bye-bye.